Libertarianism is a fringe ideology. It is not presented as an important philosophy or an important school of economic thought in the universities of Europe. It is certainly not considered important in Japan or China or Africa or South America. Libertarianism is a fringe ideology that's very influential in the United States of America because it has had the patronage and support of some very wealthy and very influential people in the United States of America and in the United States of America only in the past few decades. Alan Greenspan, very important example. Most infamously, perhaps, the Koch brothers. Now, it is rare that I would attribute any shift in public political attitudes to a book. Let's admit it, in the 21st century, not a lot of people read books. Perhaps in the sphere of political discourse, especially, our views are much more likely to be shaped by things we see on television, things we hear on the radio, or even information that we learn here on YouTube. However, Bernie Sanders had a hit book that sold millions and millions of copies, and in that book, there is a chapter advancing the narrative that the Koch brothers are part of a top-down conspiracy to transform the United States of America, and it characterizes the Koch brothers' methods, goals, and political positions with a selective reading of the earliest extant sources of what their political views were. A lot of that evidence came from the 1980 elections that the Koch brothers participated in. Well, 1980 was a long time ago. And it's also, understandably, this is the Bernie Sanders perspective on the Koch brothers. It's not going to be a balanced view of who the Koch brothers are and what they want to accomplish, what their political aspirations are. No, it's pretty much a hatchet job. And let's face it, guys, nobody judges Bernie Sanders by the political convictions he had in the year 1980, so it's not really fair to judge the Koch brothers with a selective reading of their political statements from 1980. Nevertheless, in this book, Bernie Sanders put forward this sort of powerful new view of the significance of the Koch brothers in American politics, and thus of libertarianism in American politics, as being this fringe ideology backed by billions of dollars. And while it is true that the Koch brothers have spent millions and billions of dollars trying to influence American politics, it's somewhat amusing to me that this conspiracy theory narrative has developed with so little interest in understanding what the political agenda of the Koch brothers actually is. What you're looking at on screen now, believe it or not, is the front page of the Koch brothers' main charity, their umbrella charity, Stand Together. Quote, "The tragic and unnecessary deaths of George Floyd, Ahmaud Arbery, Breonna Taylor, and too many others demonstrate that our country has a long way to go to live up to our ideal of equal justice under the law." Are you starting to get the feeling that maybe Bernie Sanders didn't tell you the whole story about who David Koch really was, or what the Koch brothers' political agenda really means for the future of the United States of America? Starting to get the feeling that maybe what Bernie Sanders wrote and what a lot of left-wing people influenced by Bernie Sanders have been writing showed a lack of sincere interest in the evidence at hand. I continue, quote, "We believe every person should be treated equally based on their individual conduct, regardless of the color of their skin or the uniform they wear. We believe there are government officials who dutifully honor their sacred oaths of office, but there are also those who do not. That includes police officers, prosecutors, judges, corrections officers, and other officials throughout the criminal justice system." Some of you in the audience will be leaping forward to complain that this is just a smokescreen, that this is just like an illusion of left-wing or liberal values that are up on the website of the Koch brothers' main charity to distract you from their secret right-wing agenda or their dark libertarian designs on the future of democracy in America. No, David Koch, his whole life long, described himself as a social liberal but an economic conservative. One simple example that really would have meant a lot within his own family and within the social milieu he chose to live his life in of multimillionaires, most of whom support the Republican Party. Keep in mind, David Koch supported gay marriage. Bill Clinton did not support gay marriage. Bill Clinton did not even support equal rights for homosexuals in the military. On many, many issues, David Koch would have seemed left-wing compared to his own father, compared to his own family members, and compared to the company he would keep, including, yes, when he was a star basketball player at MIT. If you look into the guy's life a little bit, you start to see him as a human being. And yes, his political views did change dramatically in 1991 when he just barely survived an airplane crash and he apparently witnessed many other people burning to death in this self-same airplane crash. So if you're going to pick and choose evidence from the year 1980, that really might not be representative of who he was, what his political agenda was in all the years since 1991. Now, I am not a libertarian. I don't even sympathize with libertarians. I think their political philosophy is childish and stupid and dumb. And I have had many debates with libertarians that just left me laughing at how they couldn't solve the simplest everyday problems in political science. And I've had them explain to me how they really think the world would be a better place if taxpayers did not pay for sewage systems. And like you ask them, okay, how are people going to have clean drinking water if you don't have taxation and a government and coercion that actually prevents water pollution? You know, like you take away the sewage treatment plant and you take away the whole apparatus of the state that includes both taxation and, regulation and, yes, coercion, enforcement of the laws. How do people get clean drinking water? And their answers are just laughably stupid and childish and wrong. I had one debate with a guy who's, both a libertarian and an anarcho-capitalist out on that end of the spectrum. And I said to him, look, if you sincerely believe that the world would be a better place if the government did not put any money into education whatsoever, there's no role for the taxpayer, there's no role for the state in education, then explain to me how you would improve the lives of people right now on an Ojibwe reservation, on a Navajo reservation, on a Cree reservation, indigenous people in North America. How would you improve their lives? By shutting down all the schools, taking away all the government funding, and leaving them with no access to education whatsoever. Can we talk that through step by step? And their answers are just childishly, laughably stupid. It's an outrageously dumb philosophy. Nevertheless, I do not sympathize with fear-mongering about libertarianism. I do not sympathize with Bernie Sanders lying about who the Koch brothers are and constructing this narrative. And I have no sympathy at all for people like Nancy MacLean, who've really taken the next step in trying to make libertarianism into this bogeyman, into this specter that is haunting American democracy. Yes, I do think there's a reason why nobody in Europe, nobody in Japan, and nobody in China takes libertarianism seriously. Libertarianism and anarcho-capitalism do not deserve to be taken seriously as political philosophies or as approaches to economics. And it just so happens that a handful of influential people, like the Koch brothers and like Alan Greenspan, have made this a significant talking point in American politics in the 21st century. But hey, this too will pass. Long story short, the political significance of the Koch brothers is not what it appears to be. And therefore, you should find it completely unsurprising that I'm now going to reveal my hypothesis that the political significance of the rise and fall of Stefan Molyneux also is not what it appears to be. Stefan Molyneux really is racist. The Koch brothers are not. Libertarianism, per se, is not. Even Ayn Rand herself was vocally anti-racist, specifically in dealing with the distinction between black and white in the United States of America.
The only way to abolish racism, private racism, is by advocating individualism and its corollary, a free society. In a free society, the white man's own rational self-interest would abolish racism, and those who are irrational, those who insist on running their business or their lives by racial prejudice, would be their own victims. They should be boycotted by rational men, and they should be ostracized. That is, those who are not racist should refuse to deal with those who are guilty of racial prejudice.
I'm just going to say that again. I don't support Ayn Rand in any way. Her philosophy is laughable to me. Nevertheless, Ayn Rand was a vocal anti-racist. When you know that, it's less surprising to see so many statements on the front page of the Koch brothers charity. It's quite appealing to left-wing people today and centrists today in addressing the politics of the year 2020. But Stefan Molyneux really is racist. That always was his agenda over years and years from the dawn of his YouTube channel. There is a YouTube channel called Tullia Cicero that has done a very good job of editing together the clips that will show you in just a few minutes just how racist Stefan Molyneux is and just how committed he has been to the pursuit of his racist hypotheses over many years. And if you don't go to this other YouTube channel, Tullia Cicero, you would have to watch hours and hours of this guy lecturing to piece together what his racist political agenda really is. I can't say to you that no libertarians are racist. What I can say to you is that there's a deep distinction between people who are sincerely libertarian and people who are using the libertarian ideology as a smokescreen for something else, quite often racism, but sometimes also it may just be the convenience of a particular upcoming Republican election. There may be some other political agenda there. Sometimes particular examples are more important than general principles. The example of school voucher programs is much more important than the general principles of libertarianism to understand the distinction I'm alluding to here between sincere and insincere libertarians. In the United States of America, some libertarians support school voucher programs because they really sincerely believe in expanding the role of the free market in education and reducing the role and responsibility of government education. But guess what? In historical reality, in practice, a lot of the energy, a lot of the interest in supporting a transition to school voucher programs came out of white racist parents who did not want their children in the same classroom with black Americans. So the school voucher program was a kind of smokescreen for segregation, for continuing to separate the rich from the poor, the white from the black. It was part of a struggle against the federal government encroaching on state and local officials and trying to force them to desegregate schools, to integrate the black and the white, the rich and the poor in one of the same classrooms. So that was a way for those people with that racist and elitist agenda to fight back against the federal government that just happened to coincide with and overlap with libertarianism. The rise and fall of Stefan Molyneux shows that there are people so deeply committed to the racist, white supremacist agenda that they will play a long con like this for years. They will espouse libertarian principles they do not remotely believe in. They completely insincerely act out a pantomime of being a libertarian or anarcho-capitalist just to gradually draw people in to their fundamentally racist and fundamentally authoritarian right-wing worldview.
I mean, really, people like to disrespect my crew, but the fact is that you know my name and I don't know you.